This is Psych 255, section, I'm not sure what the section number is. Wait a second. Section 31, fall of 2021, Physiological Psych. Um, I'm Bruce Bradway. I do have a PhD in psychology. I am not on the Saley campus or even in Arizona. I am currently in Lost Nation, Iowa. You can look it up on the map if you like. If you need to communicate with me, you can call me by telephone. I will have office hours every weekday except Friday. Monday and Wednesday, I will be available 3 to 5, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 to 10. This is by Zoom, and here is the meeting number. That should be good for all 4 days. So if you need to get a hold of me and it's in the afternoon, hopefully it's a Monday or a Wednesday, or if it's in the morning, it's a Tuesday or Thursday. If you need to email me, my email address is right here, bbradway@denaecollege.edu. Here's our textbook, Breedlove and Watson. You can use the 8th edition, you can use the 9th edition, you can use the 7th edition. If you've got a copy of the 6th edition, they changed the name of it. It was, it was something else. Wait a second, let me go get it. I have a copy of it. Is behavioral neuroscience is the new name. It's not. It used to be called Biological Psychology: An Introduction to Behavioral, Cognitive, and Clinical Neuroscience. That's the 8th edition. I have a copy of the 9th edition. It is entitled Behavioral Neuroscience. Same textbook, different name. So there you go. If you need the ISBN number, it's 978-16053, I think. Is that 53? Yeah, 5359076. So it's published by Sinauer. Sinauer has been bought out by Oxford University Press. So there you go. That's the textbook that we're going to use. It's a good textbook. I've been using it for a while, for about 15 years. It's an excellent textbook. I'll give you all the information you need. You can read the textbook, please. It will give you more information than I will give you. There's our schedule. First week, we'll tackle chapter 1. It's not a very long chapter. The second week, we'll tackle chapter 2. The third week, chapter 3. The fourth week, chapter 4. Fifth week, chapter 5. Sixth week, chapter 6. Seventh week, chapter 7, and then we start doubling up on the chapters. Week 8, 8 and 9. Week 9, 10 and 11. Week 10, chapter 12. Week 11, chapter 13. On and on and on and on. Okay. So how do you pass the class? I am going to show you how to do article critiques. Wait a minute. Let's start with the quizzes. The quizzes are all worth 20 points. They will be 20 questions, so there will be 1 point per question. We will cover 18 chapters since we're online, and that will be worth 360 points, which is a lot of points if you think about it. So please take the quizzes. If you don't take the quizzes, you can't possibly pass the class. We're also going I also require that you write a paper in APA format using the APA style. It needs to be 5 pages of text. When I say 5 pages of text, I mean I count lines. 23 lines per page, which multiplies out to be 115 lines. And that's what I expect your paper to be, at least 115 lines. If it's less than that, then I will count off as far as length is concerned. And a lot of people lose points. They they have a 4-page paper, which is only 4 times 23 is 92, I think. Yeah, yeah, 92, 92. And if you multiply that out, that's not 100 points. As a matter of fact, I can tell you exactly how much 4 pages will give you. 92 divided by 115 equals 16 points. So you'll lose 4 points with a 4-page paper. Is that right? No, that's not right. That's not right. Wait a minute. You lose more points than that. Let me think. It has to be at least a 3-page paper. If it's not 3 pages, and 3 pages multiplies out to 69. 69 lines, 92, 69. Let me see. Let me do the math. It's 23 lines, and divide that by 45, and we get that's so. If you only have a 4-page paper, that is 11 points for your length. That means you're missing 9 points. So please, you know, when I say 5 pages, I mean 5 pages of text. You can put your reference page does not count as a page of text. Your introductory page does not count as a page of text. So you need 5 pages of text. You need to have at least 5 references. You can put as much of what you think in the paper as you like, but you need to have at least 5 references. And that shows me that you have, there are individuals, there are scientists out there who have given you some of your information. Can you use websites? Yes, you can use websites, but you need to reference them properly. There is a video, or there's a PowerPoint on the Physiological Psych website that tells you how to do APA formatting, and that it will tell you how to do articles. They just changed all of this because the articles have become more and more prevalent in research. They become better and better. So we've started. So they changed all that, and they changed it a couple Octobers ago. We're in the publication. We're in the APA publication manual number 7, 7th edition. Now, if this is kind of curious, I guess this is the 4th publication manual I've been in. I started out in my graduate program in publication manual 4, and while I was working on my PhD, we went to 5, which changed everything, and then we went to 6 at the end of my dissertation. So I was lucky enough to get to change my dissertation 4 times. Well, 3 times. As not funny as that is. Anyway, okay, so what are we doing? Article critiques. I am going to create a video showing you how to do article critiques. Yeah, it will be a video, not a PowerPoint. It will be a video showing you how to do article critiques. The biggest problem that most people have is not that they don't do the article critiques, but that they select an article that is not a research article. I want you to write article critiques on research articles, as I will tell you when we're dealing with article critiques. Research article has participants. A lot of people will select informational articles or hypothetical articles or theoretical articles that don't really have any research in them. They just have theories, and that's not a research article. You need to find a research article. Psychology, as I will say over and over again, is based on the research that comes out of the research facilities around the world. When we look at Article critiques, I have an article from Sweden that does a longitudinal study in looking at ontogeny, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Anyway, so there's 610 total points, and this is how you get an A. You score between 549 to 610, yada, yada, yada. Okay, there you go. This explains to you how to do the article critique, 5-page paper. It has to be 12-point font in Times New Roman. Please do not send me a PDF. I can convert it, but it's kind of a pain in the neck. And that's my rubric for my library papers. There you go. And the article critiques. This explains what I want. But I will talk more about that when we talk about article critiques in the selective video for article critiques. And this is when everything is due. The reality, just between you and I, the reality is that I am very flexible as far as turning things in. For some people, this is difficult because they need people to give them timelines as to when everything needs to be done. But I'm very forgiving. I do not count off for late work, which means for some people, of course, if you tell them that you don't count off for late work, they'll delay everything until the very end. Not a good idea. You don't do your best work when you're under that kind of a gun. So the reality is you need to get things in a timely manner. The more things you turn in the last day of class, the angrier I will be, because I will have to grade everything before I can turn in your grade. So I get a little grumpy. And you don't want me grumpy because I start slinging B's and C's and D's around, and sometimes F's. So you need to be careful not to make me grouchy. And that's about it. Plagiarism, don't do it. You can write your own stuff. You can interpret what they're saying. You don't have to copy and paste. Copy and paste, not a good idea. Just do not do it. You can tell me what it says, and that's it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on today's lecture. I think there we go. Yes, let's get started on today's lecture. As you saw, I have a picture of a lady in this. That will be interesting when we get to it. Okay, so today's lecture we're going to talk about chapter 1. It's just an introductory chapter, not a whole lot, not a whole lot to it. So what is biological psychology? Physiological psychology and biological psychology are almost just about the same thing. Some people teach this class as biological psychology. Some people teach it as physiological psychology. Same difference. The name doesn't really matter. It is both physiological and biological psychology. Biological psychology seeks to explain behavior in terms of its underlying physiology, its development, its evolution, and its function. A central premise of biological psychology is that bodily processes, particularly those of the nervous system, are the basis of all behavior. So we're going to be looking at a lot of biology, but we're going to be looking at a lot of different things. Now, the reality is, I am not just a psychologist. I'm also a political scientist. I have a master's degree in political science. I worked in medicine for 30 years, so the biological aspect of my knowledge base is fairly extensive. What else do I have a degree in? Oh, my other degree is in English. Of course, I have a PhD and a master's degree in psychology, but I have a bachelor's degree in English. So English literature is one of my strong points, which means that I can correct your papers, and I probably will deep read all of your papers. And so when you get them back, I will correct not only your spelling but also your grammar, because that's who I am. And a lot of psychologists didn't study English, so they can't really do that. But I can. So one of the things that you can do with a paper that I correct is that you can turn it into an one of your English teachers, and they should be going, "Wow, you're really good at this." Anyway, I will correct all of that stuff, and it's not that, and sometimes I take off for it, and sometimes I don't take off very much. But the reality is that I want you to write well, so I will try to correct your misspellings, your comma splices, your all the problems that you have grammatically. And if you went to a school that focused on good English, I will appreciate that. If you didn't, then I will correct that. But I won't condemn you for poor grammar. I'm not a grammar Nazi unless I'm correcting your paper, and then I don't I take no prisoners. Okay. Biological psychology is a multidisciplinary in scope and draws on knowledge produced in the diverse scientific fields in an effort to produce integrated descriptions of the generation of behavior. So we're not just talking about psychologists, we're also talking about biologists. And this is one of the reasons that I get to teach this class. When I first started here, there were only two of us teaching psychology classes, and the other psychologist, the other instructor, bailed on this class really fast. She didn't want to teach it at all. She didn't feel like her background in biology was strong enough. And of course, I have a degree in, oh, I didn't tell you, I have a degree in medical laboratory technology. So my strength and like I said, I worked in medicine for 30 years. So my knowledge of biology is fairly strong. Physiology as well. It's fairly strong in physiology. Engineers, of course, and neurologists that look at the micro level of biology. And this is all the stuff that comes in. Now, the strange thing is that I also love anthropology, evolutionary biology, biology, anatomy. All of these things I've studied, strangely enough, except biochemistry. um, so, so I have a background in a lot of these different things, and they all feed into biological psychology. It's really difficult to find a psychologist that wants to teach this class. They want to pass it off to a biologist instead of a psychologist. But of course, they shouldn't, because we need this knowledge as well. Okay, so the question is, why do I have this picture? This is not a picture of my second wife, but this is what my second wife looked like. This is Catherine Mary Stewart. Yeah, Catherine Mary Stewart. And she has a face and her hair. I think it's her hair. No, actually, it's her face is shaped just like my second wife. Anyway, and the reason I put it in here, it's been in this lecture for I don't know 10 years or so. But the reason it's here is because students keep asking me what my wives look like, and this is what my second wife looked like. And now you know why she was so attractive. She left my ugly self. Actually, well, we won't get into that. Or maybe we will, who knows. This requires observation in all possible levels. This requires analysis at many levels, from molecular to macro activity to interaction with the environment. And of course, one of the things that psychologists do sometimes, we determine that you have sorry about that. Sometimes we determine that you have a low level of serotonin and it's making you depressed. So we need to increase your serotonin level to take care of your depression. So that's at the micro level. That's at the neuronal level. We've decided that you need to increase your serotonin so you won't be as depressed as you are. right now. That was interesting. Describe 5 viewpoints of the biology of behavior, describing the behavior, studying the evolution of the behavior, observing the development of the behavior and its biological characteristics over the lifespan, studying the biological mechanisms of behavior, and studying applications of biological psychology, for example, dysfunctions and lack of function. And of course, this is what psychology focuses on, the dysfunction and lack of function. We're talking about, so where does depression come from? That is a dysfunction. Why are people anxious, overly anxious? And that's a dysfunction. Schizophrenia is a dysfunction. We look at dysfunctions, but we also need to identify what is not a dysfunction, what is positive behavior. And that, of course, is positive psychology. And I was trained in positive psychology, but I have also taught abnormal psychology. So, in order to know what good is, you have to know what bad is. That's or in order to know what function is, you need to know what dysfunction is, and that's psychology started as a philosophical field dealing with mental dysfunction, and we followed that tenet for about 150 years. Positive psychology didn't begin until about the turn of the 21st century, but I have training in positive psychology, as does almost all your psychologists today are trained in positive psychology. Uh, Dr. Suzanne Russ practices positive psychology. So if you take a class from Dr. Russ, then you will be um, introduced to positive psychology. Before a scientist can do any research on biological function, they must decide and describe the function that they will research, which is not always easy. No idea why I put this picture of the Old West. O'Donnell, I think it says. Yeah, it's O'Donnell's Hotel and Cafe. There we go. I have no idea. It's probably in Denver or something. By comparing species, scientists can speculate how behavior and neural structures have changed as species have evolved. I guess we can look at what are we talking about? Change? Yeah, we have to decide what we're going to look at. So if we looked at the clothes that people wear, look how long her dress is. This is the summertime, yet she has sleeves that go down to her wrist. She's wearing a hat. She's wearing gloves. And look at the men. They all have ties on and coats and hats. How things have changed over time. By comparing species, scientists can speculate how behavior and neural structures have changed as species have evolved. And that's the assumption, is that humans evolved from lower life forms. And we are the most advanced life form. Um, it's an argument that we make because we are humans, of course, and we want to be the top dog, as it were. It'd be interesting if we could find an animal that was as analytic as humans are, or more analytic than humans are. I don't know, maybe whales, porpoises. Actually, that's a porpoise brain right there. That one right there. As an individual grows, they develop the ability to respond to stimuli. As the organism becomes more and more complex and other variables are introduced, behavior and response will change. This is known as ontogeny, how an individual changes over a lifetime. And of course, this is what you start. You start out as a single cell, and meiosis occurs and mitosis occurs. So it splits and splits and splits until we have a fetus, and eventually the fetus is born, and this is what it looks like. Billions and billions of cells. Billions and billions of neurons. The history of a species tells us the evolutionary determinants of its behavior. The history of an individual tells us the developmental determinants. The scientist must regard the organism as a machine made up of billions of neurons. And of course, you can look at this any way you want. You don't have to see it as a machine, but it's a very functional structure. And of course, if we have a problem like multiple sclerosis, what did I just read? Christina Applegate, married with she used to be on Married with Children, has multiple sclerosis. This is a breakdown of proper functioning. Um, Alzheimer's disease, breakdown of proper functioning. We can see it as a machine, but the reality is, of course, that emotion is involved as well. A major goal of biological psychology is to use research findings to improve the health and well-being of humans and other animals. Numerous human diseases involve malfunctioning of the brain, and of course, we see this over and over again. There are three ways to look at brain behavior relations. Somatic intervention, changes in the body changes behavior. Behavioral intervention, psychological changes occur, and this changes body structure or function. And correlation, how do changes in somatic variables affect behavioral variables? So the somatic intervention, as a good example would be my grandson. Yesterday he stepped on a nail. I didn't run it very far into his foot, but he ran it far enough into his foot that he complained. He's 9 years old, and he got all upset about his problem. So we washed it out, and we cleaned it, and of course it hurt a little bit, but he kept limping around on it. Today he's really limping around because when he changed um, when he changed the way that he walked, it changed everything. He couldn't get his own clothes. He couldn't get his own food. I mean, it changed his behavior completely. And now today he's got a sore leg, and the reason he's got a sore leg isn't because of the sore. It's because he changed the way that he was walking. And now he's got soccer practice on Monday, so we'll see if he can function. What he needs to do is stop favoring that foot and run around a little bit on it, so that his gait becomes normal, so that he can play on Monday. Somatic intervention, behavioral intervention, psychological changes occur, and this changes body structure or function. An example would be an individual who gets a divorce, decides that he becomes depressed, and so the individual sits down on his couch and starts binge watching Matlock or the Orange is the New Black or something. I can't remember any of the titles, or the Game of Thrones. So he starts binge watching them, eating ice cream and fried foods and potato chips. Pretty soon, he's gained 20, 30 pounds, and he's still depressed, of course, but he's gained 20 or 30 pounds, and now he's so fat, nobody wants to have anything to do with him. So the psychological changes, he becomes depressed because his relationship broke up. That changes his body structure or function. In other words, he gains weight. He becomes depressed. He gains weight. He binge watches television. Because he's indoors all the time, he turns pale. All these negative things are happening to him. There you go. If we increase testosterone in a male, will it increase his sexual response? This was a question that was asked by Freud. One of the things you need to remember about Freud, despite the fact he was one of the first psychologists, he was also a brain surgeon. He was a neurologist. So he knew about brain's functions. He had dug around in people's brains before and had seen what his surgery did to people. So one of the things that he was asked to do was to cure homosexuality. And at the time, of course, that was taboo. in Europe at that time, despite the fact that there were there were a lot of people that, well, I don't know how many a lot is, but there were a number of people who were gay. And one of the things he was asked to do was to cure homosexuality. So he thought, well, maybe they don't have enough testosterone. So what he did, he gave them shots. He gave gay men shots of testosterone to see what would happen. And the assumption was, his theory was that the more masculine they felt, the more likely that they would be an individual who would want to have sex with women. And as it turned out, it increased their sex drive, but it didn't change their orientation. In other words, they wanted to have sex more, but they wanted to have sex more with men, not with women. It didn't change their orientation at all. So the question is, if you give a man testosterone, will it increase his sexual response? And the answer is yes, whatever that sexual response turns out to be. So it's not like we can take a pedophile and we can give them testosterone and all of a sudden they are attracted to mature women or mature men for that matter. It just doesn't work that way. All we're doing is we're increasing their sexual response. Can we cause the same effect by electrically stimulating the brain? And the answer is yes. We can stimulate portions of the brain and we can increase the individual's sexual response. If we cut his vagus nerve, will he lack sexual response? And the answer is yes. If we put two adults of opposite sex together, will it lead to an increased secretion of certain hormones? The answer to that is yes. It increases their hormones. So if a man and a woman are in close proximity to each other, and there are no social restraints on them, they're not related, then both of them will start putting off they will start secreting more hormones in their own bodies. Can we change blood flow to the brain with select visual stimuli? And the answer, of course, is yes. If we change the circumstance of the interaction to include dangerous stimulation, will it cause a change in the response of the individuals? We've done this research, and one of the things we've discovered is that danger increases adrenaline. Adrenaline has something to do with the sex drive. One of the things that will happen is that the individual will be more easily sexually stimulated if they have adrenaline in their system. And the answer is yes. And I have no idea why I have the green-eyed lady on the left. Oh, there she is again. Looking at people with a frequent sexual response, will we find higher levels of hormones? The answer is yes. Can we correlate high levels of hormones with frequent sexual response? And the answer is yes. Neuroplasticity, the human brain and its peripheral neuronal structures can change with stimulation from the environment. This is known as neuroplasticity. Parts of neurons called dendritic spines seem to be in constant motion and can change shape in a matter of seconds. And this is one of the ways how you remember things, is the dendritic spines will make new connections, and those new connections will give you the information that you're looking for. This is one of the reasons why it only takes one or two times of practicing something before now you can do it very well. Even if it's a complex task, it only takes a couple times for you to learn it because of the dendritic spines. In a very real way, other individuals can affect change on the structure of an individual's brain, and this is very true. So somebody who is negative can make you negative if they harass you enough. So the people around you, whoever you have around you, are actually forming your mental response. And this is one of the reasons why they say only surround yourself with positive people. then you will reach your full potential. One of the things that negative people do is they tell you you can't do something, and that will often keep you from trying to do something. Stimulation will induce neuronal growth. Lack of stimulation will retard neuronal growth. As long as you have stimulation, then potentially you will have growth. And this is one of the reasons why we tell young parents that they need to interact with their children. They need to talk to their children. They need to play with their children. They need physical interaction. They need intellectual stimulation, even though they're small babies. Any kind of stimulation is good for the child. Researchers have been able to induce the brain of human subjects to be more active by suggesting to select individuals that water that they would be dipping their hands in would be hot. Subjects who did not experience the suggestion had less active brain activity and reported less discomfort from the water. And I'm not sure what this is, but I guess oh, there we go.
Being human. We each view ourselves as a unique and independent individual. But we're never alone. Millions of microscopic beings inhabit our bodies, and no two bodies are the same. Each is a different habitat for microbial communities, from the arid deserts of our skin to the villages on our lips and the cities in our mouths. Even every tooth is its own distinctive neighborhood. And our guts are teeming metropolises of interacting microbes. And in these bustling streets of our guts, we see a constant influx of food, and every microbe has a job to do. Here's a cellulitic bacteria, for example. Their one job is to break down cellulose, a common compound in vegetables, into sugars. Those simple sugars then move along to the respirators, another set of microbes that snatch up these simple sugars and burn them as fuel. As food travels through our digestive tract, it reaches the fermenters who extract energy from these sugars by converting them into chemicals like alcohol and hydrogen gas, which they spew out as waste products. Deeper in the depths of our gut city, the syntrophs eke out a living off the fermenters' trash. At each step of this process, energy is released, and that energy is absorbed by the cells of the digestive tract. This city we just saw is different in everyone. Every person has a unique and diverse community of gut microbes that can process food in different ways. One person's gut microbes may be capable of releasing only a fraction of the calories that another person's gut microbes can extract. So what determines the membership of our gut microbial community? Well, things like our genetic makeup and the microbes we encounter throughout our lives can contribute to our microbial ecosystems. The food we eat also influences which microbes live in our gut. For example, food made of complex molecules like an apple requires a lot of different microbial workers to break it down. But if a food is made of simple molecules like a lollipop, some of these workers are put out of a job. Those workers leave the city, never to return. What doesn't function well are gut microbial communities with only a few different types of workers. For example, humans who suffer from diseases like diabetes or chronic gut inflammation typically have less microbial variety in their guts. We don't fully understand the best way to manage our individual microbial societies, but it is likely that lifestyle changes, such as eating a varied diet of complex plant-based foods, can help revitalize our microbial ecosystems in our gut and across the entire landscape of our body. So we are really not alone in our body. Our bodies are homes to millions of different microbes, and we need them just as much as they need us. As we learn more about how our microbes interact with each other and with our bodies, we will reveal how we can nurture this complex invisible world that shapes our personal identity, our health, and our well-being.
Okay, what is this called? This is called our biome. We are a biome. We have bacteria in our systems. It comes from our food. It comes from our environment, and all of us are different. Each and every one of us is different. My wife right now is on a gluten-free diet. Is that right? She's on a sugar-free, gluten-free diet, and of course, I eat whatever I want to eat. It includes gluten and it also includes sugar. So we have a different biome, my wife and I, despite the fact that we're close to each other, we kiss each other all the time. So it would be logical for both of us to have a very similar biome, but the reality is that we don't. Um, I eat more vegetables than she does. Well, she actually right now she's eating hardly anything but vegetables. So the more vegetables you eat, vegetables are very complex um, foods. Has to be They have to be broken down by a lot of different bacterial structures in your stomach, as you saw in the video. Each and every one of us are different. I've been to a lot of different places around the world. Every time you go someplace new, you pick up new bacteria. Sometimes the new bacteria can make you sick. And that's what they used to call Montezuma's revenge down in Mexico. People would visit Mexico, they'd eat the food, and then they would get dysentery. Um, and it was because the bacteria in the area wasn't the same. Same thing happened to me. We were on a trip to Guatemala. It was a Fulbright trip. There were a group of us, about 20 of us, and we ate at a local restaurant. The food wasn't cooked completely. It was fine for them, for somebody from Guatemala because they're used to uh, that degree of cooking. We cook our food from as people from the United States. We cook our food a little bit more completely than that. There were parasites in the food, and some of us came down with the parasites. All of us who ate chicken came down with the parasite, and one person almost died. It was a parasite called cyclospora, fairly new parasite. I studied parasites when I was a lab tech in the Air Force because people are, going all over the world. Military people go all over the world and they pick up all kinds of strange things, including malaria. And you have to be able to identify these things fairly quickly so that you can start treating them so that they can recover. But I've lived in where have I lived? Germany, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. Is that it? Yeah, that's close enough. I visited Egypt, Norway. I lived in Europe for an extended length for 3 years. So I've been all over Europe. And the food's different everywhere you go, and they cook their food differently. And sometimes they don't kill all the bacteria, but it's okay for them. They're used to that bacteria. It gets kind of interesting. I've also lived all over the United States. One of the complaints I had when I was working in Saline was that I can't stomach mutton, strangely enough. And Emery knows about why I can't, but we won't go into that. But there are a lot of things. There are a lot of foods that you guys eat that I'm not used to. Just wasn't used to it, and it didn't make me sick. I'm smart enough at this point, after traveling all over the world. I'm smart enough to stay away from things that don't make me feel very good. And usually, I all I need to do is eat at one time, and I'm done with it. Um, if it makes me feel queasy or whatever, I just stop eating it. I'm that smart. But there's some really strange foods out there. Japan, they eat mostly seafood, and I can't eat seafood at all. So I guess I was lucky. I didn't have to eat and eat Japanese food. But I love their noodles. I love Japanese noodles. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about biomes. Whoops. There we go. Many times, psychological research shows a plan of reductionism. The researchers begin with a general behavioral reaction and then follow it from the behavior to the central nervous system. Looking at the response in the brain, they locate the area of the brain affected. From the affected area, they isolate the single nerves that are affected. They then will look at chemical changes that take place in the neuron. And this is how we discovered depression can be controlled by increasing serotonin and norepinephrine levels. This is how we discovered that anxiety is caused by a reduction in the gamma aminobutyric acid neurotransmitter. So all we need to do, we need to increase the GABA level, and then we can control somebody's anxiety. This is how we discover all of these things. Schizophrenia has been a real trick. And it may be, and my theory is that there isn't, we call it schizophrenia because people react in a similar manner, in a psychotic manner. But my theory is that there's a lot of different reasons for this. And what we're doing is we're trying to make it one problem. Like depression, we can work with depression if we can increase the serotonin and norepinephrine level. Well, there you go. That's depression. But schizophrenia, I have a feeling it is more than one problem, and it's more than three or four problems. They can come from a lot of different places, and I have a feeling that's what's going on. But I haven't written my theory down. I'm sure there are other people that will argue otherwise. Uh, don't take what I say to the bank. Not at this point, anyway. I have a feeling they're going to break schizophrenia and autism. They're going to break it down into various types, various forms. It's not all one problem. During the technique of reductionism, researchers can break down the complex mechanism that leads to brain malfunctions. About 19% of all Americans suffer from some form of psychiatric disorder. That sounds like an answer to a question on the quiz. Another 3.2% suffer from some neurological disorder. Alzheimer's disease is the fastest growing affliction in the industrialized societies. There's a reason for this, and the reason is because people are living longer. And one of the things we've discovered is that like 80% of people over 80 have Alzheimer's disease. Why? Well, when I was born, my life expectancy was 59. Well, I'm 72 right now. But in 1949, when I was born, life expectancy was 59. Why in the world was it so low? Well, one of the reasons is because in 1949, just under half of the adult population in the United States smoked tobacco. Tobacco is very destructive. They have estimated that it can take as much as 10 years off your life. So if you're an individual that would have lived to be 70 or 80 years old, if you smoke tobacco, and the more you smoke, the more likely you're going to have a problem. They were dying in their late 40s, early 50s. If they made 60, it was a really odd situation. People who smoked just died young. They died of heart disease, they died of lung cancer, they died of emphysema. They died of all kinds of things, but that's what was going on. That's what was going on when I was born, 1949. Now the life expectancy is in the upper 70s, so I'm okay. I should live a couple more years. I think life expectancy is 76 for men and 78 for women in the United States, or something like that. So I should live a couple more years anyway. I should live to the end of the semester so I can give you your grade. So don't worry. Prevalence of neurological disorders. The number one neurological disorder is Alzheimer's disease. There you go, 3 million. And I have lost my, wait a minute, I've lost my arrow. Okay, here we go. Okay, there we go. Alzheimer's disease is the number one neurological disorder. The number one um, problem, psychiatric disorder, is anxiety. There you go. And I'm sure that's an answer to a question on the quiz. Severe anxiety, 16 million. As you can see, alcohol and drug abuse, 15 million. And severe depression, 10 million. And schizophrenia, 1.5 million. There you go. So severe anxiety is the number one psychiatric disorder. And neurologic disorder is Alzheimer's disease, 3 million. Nobody comes close. Epilepsy, 2 million. Strokes, 1.8 million. Much of the research dealing with psychology is done on other species. By comparing the reactions of other species, researchers are able to judge how humans will react in similar situations. 93% of animals used in research are some form of rodent, usually mice or rats. They're spatially raised. They are genetically pure as they can be, because we want them to react to whatever it is we're doing. Now, if you work with rats, you don't have to let them crawl around all over you, as nasty as that looks to me. This is a joke. Don't take this to the bank. Causes of death of lab rats. PETA rescue gone bad. Aha, that's a funny joke. Anyway, this is all funny. Genetic disease research. Some of this is accurate. Genetic disease research is very common, and of course they do use rodents. Okay, I don't know how you feel about rats. I'm not real crazy about them, so they can do all the experiments they want as far as I'm concerned. And that's the end of the chapter. I'm going to stop right here. I will. I'm going to make another video dealing with how you do a article critique. Okay, so I'll see you next week for chapter 2.